The twin suns of 7 were setting when first noticed something wrong. She sat alone in the small communications room, watching her screens flash with data from the edge of the star system. The signals were strange. They did not match anything in her database. Was 24 years old. She had joined the Terran Defense Force because she wanted to see the stars, not because she wanted to fight. 7 was supposed to be a quiet posting. Nothing ever happened here. The colony was home to 12,000 people, mostly farmers and their families. They grew crops under the twin suns and lived simple, peaceful lives. She tried to clean up the signal to make it clearer. Her fingers moved across the controls. The shapes on her screen slowly became sharper. What she saw made her blood turn cold. Ships, dozens of ships, maybe hundreds, they were coming fast. Grabbed her communicator. "Commander, this is Lieutenant. We have incoming vessels. Unknown origin. They are not responding to standard greeting signals." The reply came quickly. His voice was calm but serious. "How many?" "I count at least 150. Sir, they are moving in attack formation." "Silence. Then, sound the alarm, wake everyone. I am coming to you now." Press the button that would send the warning across the entire colony. Sirens began to scream. In homes across 7, people woke from their sleep. Parents grabbed children. Farmers left their beds and looked up at the sky. Arrived at the communications room within minutes. He was an older man, 50 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 2 wars before retiring to this peaceful colony. He had hoped his fighting days were over. He looked at screens and his face became hard. Dominion. Knew the name. Everyone knew the name. There were an alien species that believed the galaxy belonged to them. They had conquered many worlds and destroyed many species. Humanity had avoided direct conflict with them, staying away from their territory. But 7 was in neutral space. It was not supposed to be anyone's territory. "Why are they here?" asked. Shook his head. "It does not matter why. What matters is what we do now." He began typing commands into the console. "I am sending a distress beacon to Earth. They need to know what is happening." Outside, the sky was changing. The stars were disappearing, blocked by the massive shapes of warships. They hung in the darkness like monsters waiting to feed. The first explosion came without warning. A beam of bright green light shot down from the sky and hit the center of the colony's main town. The building it struck simply disappeared. One moment it was there. The next moment there was only fire and smoke. Screams filled the night. People ran in every direction, but there was nowhere to run. More beams fell from the sky. Houses exploded. Streets cracked open. The ground itself seemed to burn. Finished his message and sent it into space. He turned to, "The underground tunnels, go now. That is an order." "Sir, I cannot leave you." "You will survive," he said firmly. "Someone must survive to tell them what happened here. Go." Wanted to argue, but she saw the look in his eyes. He knew he was going to die. He had accepted it, but he needed her to live. She ran. The maintenance tunnels were beneath the communications building. They were old, built when the colony was first established, used for repairs and storage. Climbed down the ladder and started moving through the darkness. Above her, she could hear the explosions. She could feel the ground shaking. She ran until her legs burned. She ran until she could not hear the screams anymore. Then she found a small room, deep underground, and she stopped. Sat in the darkness and listened to her colony die. The attack lasted for 3 hours. They were thorough. They did not just destroy buildings. They hunted survivors. Their ground troops moved through the ruins, searching for anyone who had escaped the initial bombardment. They found farmers hiding in cellars. They found children hiding under beds. They found old people who could not run fast enough. They killed them all. When silence finally came, it was worse than the noise. Waited in her dark room for what felt like forever. She was afraid to move. She was afraid that if she made any sound, they would find her too. Hours passed. Then more hours. She had no food, no water, no light, just darkness and fear and the knowledge that everyone she knew was dead. Finally, she forced herself to move. She climbed back up through the tunnels, moving slowly, stopping often to listen. When she reached the surface, the twin suns were rising again. 7 was gone. Where the colony had stood, there was nothing but ash and broken stone. The buildings were destroyed. The fields were burned. Bodies lay everywhere, twisted and still, walked through the ruins like a ghost, unable to believe what she was seeing. She found Commander near the communications building. He had died at his post, still trying to send messages, still trying to call for help. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. "Close them gently. I will tell them," she whispered. "I will tell them everything." She walked for 3 days. She had no destination. She simply walked, moving through the destruction, stepping over bodies, breathing smoke and ash. She did not eat. She did not sleep. She just walked. On the 3rd day, a ship appeared in the sky. For a moment, felt terror. She thought the had returned. But then she saw the symbol on the ship's side, the blue and white flag of the Terran Union. The rescue team found her standing in the middle of a burned field. She was covered in ash. Her eyes were empty. When they asked her what happened, she could not speak. The words would not come. They took her aboard the ship. They wrapped her in blankets and gave her water. They asked her questions she could not answer. Did not speak for the entire journey back to Earth. She sat in silence, staring at nothing, seeing the flames in her mind over and over again. 12,000 people, farmers, teachers, children, all gone. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath the shock and the grief and the horror, something else was growing. Something cold, something hard. They had made a mistake. They thought killing one small colony would teach humanity to fear them. They thought humans would run and hide and beg for peace. They were wrong. The news reached Earth on a cold morning. In the Great Hall of the Terran Union Council, 200 of humanity's most powerful leaders gathered to hear what had happened. They sat in silence as the report was read aloud. 12,000 dead. An entire colony destroyed. No survivors except one young woman who could not speak. At first there was shock. Then there was anger. Voices rose as politicians argued about what to do. Some wanted immediate war. Others called for caution. Some suggested sending diplomats to the Dominion to demand an explanation. Admiral sat in the back of the chamber, listening to the arguments. He was 63 years old, a man who had spent his life serving humanity among the stars. He had commanded ships in 2 border conflicts. He had buried friends who died in battle. He had seen the worst that war could bring. But he had never seen anything like this. The arguments continued for hours. Words like proportional response and diplomatic channels filled the air. Listened and said nothing. His hands rested on his knees, still and calm. But inside, a fire was burning. Then someone brought the footage. A young farmer on 7 had been streaming video when the attack began. He had pointed his camera at the sky as the ships appeared. He had kept filming as the first bombs fell. The video showed people running through streets filled with fire. It showed buildings collapsing. It showed a little girl, no more than 6 years old, standing alone in the chaos, screaming for her mother. The video cut to static. The girl's scream still hung in the air. The chamber was silent. Some of the leaders had tears on their faces. Others looked sick. No one spoke. Stood up, he walked slowly to the front of the chamber, his boots echoing on the stone floor. When he reached the speaking platform, he turned to face the council. "Proportional response," he said quietly. "I have heard those words many times today. I want to understand what they mean. The killed 12,000 civilians, farmers, children, people who had no weapons, no way to fight back. They did not ask for surrender. They did not make demands. They simply decided that those people did not deserve to live." His voice grew louder. "What is a proportional response to that? Do we kill 12,000 of their civilians? Do we destroy one of their colonies? Will that teach them anything?" He slammed his hand on the platform. The sound made everyone jump. No, a proportional response will teach them nothing. They will see it as weakness. They will think we are afraid. They will do this again to another colony and then another until there are no humans left in the stars. Looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every leader. I am not asking for permission to respond. I am telling you what is going to happen. Every ship in my fleet is going to the border. Every soldier who can hold a weapon is coming with me. We are going to make sure they understand something very important. He paused. Human lives are not worthless, and anyone who thinks they are will learn the truth in fire. The vote passed unanimously. Within hours, the orders went out across human space. Every military base, every space station, every ship received the same message: prepare for war. On a small moon in the outer colonies, a young man named received his orders. He was 20 years old, a private in the Terran Marines. He had joined the military because he wanted adventure and because his family needed the money he could send home. He had never expected to actually fight. He stood at the window of his barracks, watching transport ships lift off into the dark sky. One after another, they rose from the ground and disappeared among the stars. Each one carried soldiers toward the fleet assembly point. His squad leader, Sergeant, found him there. She was 35, a career soldier with scars on her face and iron in her voice. She had fought in the border conflicts. She knew what war really meant. "You are thinking about running," she said. It was not a question. Shook his head. "No, I am thinking about what happens next." "What do you mean?" He turned to look at her. "I have never killed anyone. I have trained for it, but I have never done it. What if I cannot? What if I freeze?" Walked to the window and stood beside him. Every soldier asks that question before their first battle. The truth is, you will not know until you are there. But I will tell you something my commander told me a long time ago. She pointed at the ships rising into the sky. Those ships are full of people just like you, scared, uncertain, wondering if they can do what needs to be done, but they are going anyway. Do you know why? Waited. Because someone has to. Because if we do not go, they will keep killing. They will find another colony and another, and they will murder everyone they find. The only way to stop them is to make them afraid of us. She put a hand on his shoulder. You do not have to be brave, you just have to show up. That is enough. Across human space, the same scene repeated itself. Reservists reported to their bases. Retired veterans walked into recruitment centers and asked for weapons. Factories that made farm equipment switched to making guns and ammunition. Shipyards that were building cargo vessels began building warships instead. On Earth, the government opened special offices where civilians could volunteer. The lines stretched for kilometers. Young people, old people, people who had never held a weapon in their lives. They all came, driven by the same feeling. 7 was not just a colony. It was a piece of humanity, and when you hurt one piece, you hurt them all. Admiral watched the fleet gather from the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Ships arrived every hour, emerging from faster-than-light travel in flashes of light. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, carriers filled with fighters, support vessels carrying soldiers and supplies. His second-in-command, Captain Sara, handed him a report. 300 warships assembled, sir. More are on the way. Nodded. What about ground forces? 200,000 Marines ready for deployment. Another 100,000 reservists completing training. And what do they know? Sora hesitated. Our intelligence suggests they do not expect us to respond at all. They believe the attack on 7 will make us retreat from the outer systems. Almost smiled, almost. Then we have the advantage of surprise. He looked out at the gathering fleet, at the hundreds of ships that would carry humanity's anger across the stars. Each one was filled with people like Private, scared but determined. People who had never wanted war but would not run from it. Send a message to all ships, said. Tell them we move in 12 hours. Tell them what we are fighting for. He thought of the little girl in the video, screaming for her mother who would never come. Tell them we fight for the 12,000, and we do not stop until the job is done. The Dominion had ruled its part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species. They had destroyed civilizations that dared to resist them. In all that time, no enemy had ever reached their core systems. No enemy had ever made them afraid. They looked at humanity and saw nothing to fear. Humans were young. They had only been traveling the stars for a few hundred years. Their technology was simple. Their military was small. They had crushed species far more powerful than humanity without breaking a sweat. The attack on 7 was meant to send a message. The humans were spreading too far, too fast. They needed to learn their place. One destroyed colony would teach them to stay away from territory. One massacre would make them retreat. That was what they believed. They were wrong. The human fleet jumped into border space without warning. 300 warships appeared in flashes of light, forming battle lines that stretched across the darkness. The defense force, 80 ships strong, scrambled to respond. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy ships move into formation. Beside him, Lieutenant monitored the communications channels. She had demanded a combat posting after her rescue. Some officers had argued against it, saying she was too traumatized, too broken, had overruled them. He understood something they did not, was not broken, she was forged. Open a channel to the commander, ordered. His fingers moved across her console. Channel open, sir. Spoke clearly, knowing his words would be heard across the entire system. This is Admiral of the Terran Third Fleet. You have 1 standard hour to evacuate your military installations. After that, we will begin our advance. We will not stop until you understand that human lives are not worthless. The commander's response came quickly. His voice was cold, arrogant. You are foolish to come here, human. You have seen what we can do. Turn back now and we may show mercy. Cut the connection without replying. He looked at the clock on his display. 60 minutes began counting down. Sir, Captain Sora said, they are not evacuating. They are preparing to attack. I expected nothing less. Turned to his tactical officer. All ships prepare for combat. We fire at the end of the hour, not before. The waiting was the hardest part. For 60 minutes, the 2 fleets faced each other across the void. Human crews checked their weapons and said prayers. Warriors laughed at the small fleet that dared to challenge them. Then the clock reached 0. The Indomitable fired first. A massive slug shot across space at incredible speed, slamming into a cruiser. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire. Then every human gun spoke at once. They had never faced anything like it. Human ships did not fight like other species. They did not hold back. They did not try to conserve their strength. They attacked with everything they had, pouring fire into the enemy without mercy. Lieutenant watched through the bridge viewport as ships broke apart under the assault. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, only a cold sense of purpose. This was for the 12,000. Enemy ships are retreating, a sensor officer reported. Track them, ordered. We follow. The battle was over in less than an hour. The lost 42 ships. The humans lost 7. It was not even close. But was not satisfied. One victory meant nothing. He ordered the fleet forward, deeper into territory. System by system, the advance continued. They tried to stop them at every turn. They gathered larger fleets. They built stronger defenses. They called for reinforcements from across their empire. It did not matter. Private was in the first wave that stormed a fortress world. He rode in a landing craft with 30 other Marines, all of them silent, all of them scared. Sergeant sat across from him, checking her weapon. Remember your training, she said. Stay with your squad, watch your corners, and do not stop moving." The landing craft hit the ground hard. The doors opened, ran out into hell. The fortress was massive, a mountain of metal and stone that rose above a burning plain. Enemy fire filled the air. Marines fell all around him, ran forward because he could not go back. He ran because stopping meant dying. He saw a soldier appear from behind a rock. The alien raised its weapon, fired without thinking. The fell. Kept running. He killed again and then again. He did not feel like himself. He felt like a machine doing what he was built to do. The fear was still there, but it was buried beneath something stronger. The fortress fell after 3 days of fighting. When it was over, sat among the rubble, unable to move. His hands were shaking. His uniform was covered in blood, some of it his own, most of it not. Sergeant found him there. She sat beside him without saying anything. "I killed them," whispered. "So many. I did not even think about it, I just did it." Nodded. "That is what war does, it changes you." "I do not know if I can change back." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Maybe you can, maybe you cannot, but right now that does not matter. What matters is that you are alive. What matters is that we won." Around them, other Marines were gathering. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some were just staring at nothing, their minds somewhere far away. But the flag rising above the fortress was human. And across the planet, slaves who had lived under rule for centuries were walking free for the first time. The advance continued. Word spread through the galaxy. Humanity was not retreating. Humanity was not negotiating. Humanity was coming and nothing could stop them. Other species watched in amazement. Many of them had suffered under rule. Many of them had lost their own worlds, their own people. They had believed they could not be beaten. They had accepted their fate. Now they saw something different. They saw humans dying, yes, but also fighting. They saw a young species that refused to accept defeat. They saw something that looked a lot like hope. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral studied maps of the Empire. 6 months of war had brought them deep into enemy territory. That was now within reach. "Sir," said, "we are receiving reports from the frontier. Forces are surrendering in 3 sectors. Their commanders are asking for terms." Shook his head. "No terms, we advance." "Sir, some of our officers are questioning whether this is necessary. They are already broken. We have one." Turned to look at her. "Have you forgotten?" His eyes hardened. "Never." "Then you understand. We did not come here to win. We came here to make sure this never happens again. The only way to do that is to make them understand exactly what they did. And the only way to make them understand is to bring the war to their home." He turned back to the map. "Send the order. We move on this ends where it begins." Was called Eternal Throne. For 3,000 years it had been the center of their empire. Their greatest temple stood there. Their high council ruled from a palace that touched the clouds. Billions of lived on its surface, believing they were the masters of the galaxy. Now, human ships filled the sky above their world. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking down at the planet below. It was beautiful, in a cold way. Great cities of silver and black covered the continents. Oceans of deep purple separated the landmasses. Orbital stations circled the world like jewels around a crown. Those stations were burning now. The human fleet had destroyed them first, clearing the path for what would come next. "Admiral," Captain Sora said, "we are receiving a transmission from the surface. The High Council wants to negotiate." Was silent for a moment. He had imagined this day many times. He had wondered what he would feel when they finally asked for peace. He had expected satisfaction, maybe even joy. He felt nothing. "Tell them I will meet their representatives on the neutral station at the edge of the system. They have 6 hours." The meeting room on the neutral station was simple. A round table, chairs on either side. No decorations, no symbols of power, just a place where enemies could talk without killing each other. Admiral arrived first with Lieutenant at his side. She wore her uniform perfectly, her face calm and cold. In the months since the war began, she had earned a reputation. Some called her the ghost of, others called her worse things. She did not care what they called her. The delegation arrived exactly on time. 3 representatives, all wearing the ceremonial robes of the High Council. Their leader was tall, even for a, with gray skin and eyes like polished stones. "I am Elder," he said, taking his seat. "I speak with the authority of the High Council." Nodded but did not introduce himself. They knew who he was. Elder placed his hands on the table. "This war has been costly for both our peoples. We are prepared to offer terms that we believe are fair and reasonable." "I am listening." "We propose a return to the borders that existed before the conflict. We will pay reparations for the incident. At 7, we will also agree to a treaty of non-aggression, ensuring peace between our species for the next 100 years. Said nothing. His expression did not change. Elder continued. "Additionally, we are prepared to offer trade agreements, technology exchanges, and diplomatic recognition. You will find us to be generous partners in peace." Silence filled the room. Elder waited, expecting a response. When none came, he shifted in his seat. "Admiral, you must understand that these are extraordinary concessions. No species has ever forced them to offer so much. You should be honored." Finally spoke. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Elder, I want to make sure I understand correctly. You killed 12,000 of our people. Farmers, children, people who had never held a weapon. You destroyed their homes, burned their fields, and hunted them through the ruins. And now you offer us trade agreements." The incident at 7 was regrettable, but... Regrettable, his voice hardened. "That is an interesting word. Tell me, Elder, how many of your people died in this war?" Hesitated. "The numbers are still being calculated, but estimates suggest approximately 2 million military casualties." 2 million. That is a large number. And yet, I do not think you regret those deaths the way we regret ours. I think you see them as a cost, a price to be paid. You do not understand what you did at 7. You do not understand why we came here." He leaned forward. "Let me explain. When you attacked that colony, you did not just kill 12,000 people. You killed their children who would have been born. You erased an entire branch of our future. Every dream they had, every plan they made, every life they would have touched. Gone, because you decided they were in your way." Elder tried to speak, but continued. "Here are our terms. Complete demilitarization of your armed forces. Surrender of all territories you have conquered. War crimes tribunals for every commander involved in the massacre. And you will build a memorial on the site of the colony, maintained forever, so that every species in this galaxy knows what happens when you murder humans." The representatives looked at each other in shock. Elder shook his head. "These terms are impossible. Our people will never accept them. You are asking us to destroy everything we have built." "No, I am telling you what will happen. You can accept these terms now, or you can refuse, and we will reduce your civilization to ash and then impose them anyway. We have already lost everything worth protecting. You cannot threaten people who have nothing left to lose." His voice rose. "This is madness. You cannot destroy an empire of 3,000 years. You do not have the strength." For the first time, Lieutenant spoke. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it filled the room. "I walked through the ruins of 7. I stepped over the bodies of people I knew. I saw what you left behind. There were no survivors to ask for mercy on your behalf. There was no one left to forgive you." She looked at Elder with eyes that held no warmth, no humanity. "So we will not offer mercy. We will not offer forgiveness. We will only offer you a choice. Accept our terms or watch your children burn the way ours did." The room was silent. Elder stared at her, and for the first time he looked afraid. "You are not negotiating," he said quietly. You are pronouncing judgment. Nodded, now you understand. The requested 3 days to consult with their High Council. Gave them 2. During that time, the human fleet remained in position above Eternal Throne, a constant reminder of what would happen if the answer was wrong. In the end, the answer was yes. The signing ceremony was simple. No celebration, no speeches, just signatures on documents that ended 3,000 years of dominance. Elder's hand shook as he pressed his mark onto the treaty. When it was done, he looked at Admiral. You have destroyed us. Shook his head. No, you destroyed yourselves at 7. We simply finished what you started. He turned and walked out of the room at his side. Behind them, the representatives sat in silence, trying to understand how everything had changed so quickly. But understood. She had understood since the day she climbed out of the tunnels and saw what was left of her home. The galaxy had rules. The strong did what they wanted. The weak suffered. That was how it had always been. But humanity had learned a new rule. When someone hurts you, you hurt them back. Harder, faster, more completely. You make them understand that the cost of attacking you is higher than they can ever pay. And you never, ever forget, 10 years passed. The war was over, but its shadow remained. The Dominion was broken, its fleets destroyed, its conquered worlds freed. Species that had lived under their rule for centuries now built their own futures. The galaxy was different, and everyone knew why. On 7, the memorial stood where the colony had once been. 12,000 pillars of white stone rose from the earth, one for every person who had died. They stood in perfect rows, stretching across the plain like a forest of light. When the twin suns set, the pillars glowed, visible for kilometers in every direction. Visitors came from across human space and beyond. Some were humans who had lost family in the massacre. Some were veterans who had fought in the war. Some were aliens from species that had once ruled, coming to see the monument to those who had started the revolution. At the center of the memorial, a great stone held an inscription carved in 100 languages. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything that had happened. They were farmers, teachers, children, dreamers. They asked for nothing but a place to live. They were taken from us. We made sure it mattered. Admiral, now retired, lived in a small house by the ocean on Earth. He had left the military after the war, refusing every promotion, every honor, every request to stay. He said he had done what needed to be done, and now he wanted to rest. He tended a garden behind his house, growing vegetables and flowers. He wrote letters to the families of soldiers who had died under his command. Every letter was personal. Every letter was honest. He told them what their loved ones had done, how they had fought, how they had mattered. Reporters came to interview him sometimes. He always refused. When they asked about his legacy, about what he wanted to be remembered for, he gave the same answer every time. I did what anyone would have done. They killed our people. We made sure no one would ever do it again. Some nights he sat on his porch and looked up at the stars. He thought about the ships he had commanded, the battles he had won, the lives he had taken and saved. He thought about 7, about the footage of the little girl screaming for her mother. He never stopped seeing that footage. He never stopped hearing that scream. Captain, as she was now known, had taken command of the Indomitable after the war. She led peacekeeping missions to former territories, helping rebuild worlds that had known nothing but oppression. She was strict but fair, demanding excellence from her crew while never asking them to do anything she would not do herself. Once a year she returned to 7. She walked among the pillars, reading the names carved into the stone. She knew many of them. Some had been friends. Some had been strangers. All of them deserved to be remembered. She always stopped at Commander's pillar. She would stand there for a long time, saying nothing, remembering the man who had ordered her to survive. I kept my promise, she would whisper. I told them everything. The anger that had driven her through the war was still there, buried deep inside. But it was quieter now, colder. She had learned to live with it, to use it without letting it consume her. Left the military after his tour ended. He had seen enough death, enough destruction. He wanted to build something instead of tearing things down. He became a teacher at a colony school, working with children who had never known war. He taught them history and science and how to think for themselves. He was patient with them, kind in a way that surprised people who knew what he had done during the war. He never spoke about those days. When students asked about his service, he changed the subject. When other veterans tried to bond with him over shared experiences, he politely walked away. But every year, on the anniversary of, he stood at the window of his classroom and stared at the sky. His students learned not to disturb him on that day. They did not understand what he was thinking about, but they could see the pain in his eyes. Sargent stayed in the service. She rose through the ranks, becoming an instructor at the military academy. She trained new soldiers, teaching them how to fight, how to survive, how to carry the weight of what they might have to do. She told them the same thing she had told long ago on that small moon. Being scared meant you understood. Showing up was enough. You did not have to be brave, you just had to be there. Many of her students went on to serve with distinction. Some of them died in later conflicts, smaller wars that flared up across the galaxy. She remembered every one of them. She attended every funeral she could. At night, she sometimes wondered if she had done enough, if she had trained them well enough, if there was something more she could have said, some wisdom she could have shared that would have kept them alive. She never found an answer. She kept teaching anyway. The galaxy was different after the war. They were no longer a threat, their empire reduced to a single system under constant observation. Other species looked at humanity with new eyes. Some of them were afraid. They had seen what humans could do when they were angry. They had watched a young species tear apart an ancient empire because of 12,000 dead. They wondered what else humans might do if given reason. Others were inspired. They saw in humanity a fierce loyalty, a refusal to abandon their own. Species that had been conquered, that had given up hope, began to believe that resistance was possible. If humans could defeat maybe they could defeat their own oppressors too. New alliances formed. New friendships grew. The galaxy was still dangerous, still full of threats and challenges, but something had changed. A message had been sent, written in fire and blood, and everyone had heard it. Human lives are not worthless. Human colonies are not targets. Human people are not prey. And when you hurt them, every Terran gun roars back. On the 10th anniversary of the massacre, a ceremony was held at the memorial. Thousands gathered to honor the dead. Admiral came out of retirement for the first time, standing before the crowd at his side. Was there too, and countless others who had fought in the war. Spoke briefly. His voice was old now, tired but still strong. 10 years ago, we lost 12,000 people. We lost farmers and teachers and children. We lost dreams and futures and possibilities we will never know. That loss will never heal. The hole it left in our hearts will never be filled. He paused, looking out at the pillars stretching into the distance. But we did not let that loss be meaningless. We carried our grief across the stars. We turned our pain into purpose. And we made sure that every species in this galaxy knows what we are capable of. Not cruelty, not conquest, but devotion, loyalty, the absolute, unbreakable commitment to our own. He straightened his shoulders. This memorial is not just for the dead. It is for the living. It is a reminder of who we are. We are humans. We are Terrans, and we never forget. The ceremony ended as the twin suns set. The pillars began to glow, 12,000 lights in the darkness. People stood in silence, watching, remembering. Walked through the pillars alone as she did every year. She found Commander's marker and stood before it. The inscription was simple, just his name, his rank, and the words, "He stayed so others could live." She touched the cold stone with her fingertips. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I told them everything, and they listened." She looked up at the darkening sky, at the stars coming out one by one. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, wondering, remembering. "Let them remember," she thought. "Let them remember what happens when you hurt humanity. Let them remember the war we fought and the price they paid. Let them remember that we are not to be underestimated, not to be dismissed, not to be attacked without consequence. And let them remember 7. Let them remember the 12,000. Because we never will forget." She walked back through the pillars as night fell over the memorial. Behind her, the lights glowed steadily, a field of stars brought down to Earth. They would shine all night, every night, forever. A reminder, a warning, a promise. Humanity remembers. Humanity responds. And when every Terran gun roars, the galaxy listens.